Hello and welcome to the Royal Road School of Carmelite Prayer. A link to the Praying with Teresa of Avila website has been provided below to enable you to find the notes and audio of today's presentation, along with the catalog of offerings on this channel. Today's presentation, Teresian Prayer, Part 3, Teresa's Viewpoint on Prayer. Article written by Carmelite Nuns, taken from the Carmel Clarion, January through March 2011. Part 3, Teresa's Viewpoint on Prayer. From Teresa's personal experience, prayer is an intimate sharing between friends. It means taking time frequently to be alone with Him who we know loves us. The entire emphasis in the Teresian concept of prayer is on the persons who now live engrossed in one another in a friendly way. The definition given of prayer, given us by Teresa, shows that to pray is to reach out to the person with one's entire person, listening and speaking, intimate sharing. When answering the question, what is mental prayer in the way of perfection, Teresa does not use the definition of prayer she gave us in her autobiography, The Life, but says this: this is mental prayer, to understand these truths. In other words, the truths are about God and the human being, about a discovery leading to an encounter, and about conforming my way of life to His. Teresa wants all the attention of the one praying to be focused on the divine person or looking at the person. I'm not asking you to do anything more than look at Him, she tells us in The Way of Perfection. With the intellect quiet, look at Christ, who is looking at us. What is said is not important. What matters is being with Him, the act of being present. Paying attention to God's love for us forms part of Teresa's definition of prayer. Who we know loves us. Teresa notes that the first lesson of Christ, the Master of Prayer, is the love He has for us. In the first word of the Our Father, you will immediately understand the love He has for you. To know one is loved generates a loving response. Love begets love. Therefore, it is always necessary to look at the love God has for us. Do that then which best stirs you to love. Prayer is a loving encounter, an encounter in truth, God's truth and our truth. In prayer, God reveals Himself to us. He shows us His truth, that He loves us and gives to us. He never tires of giving and without measure. He looks for someone to give to. This is the God Teresa discovered in prayer. We only get to know people, God included, when we share intimate friendship with them. This is also true for self-discovery. To pray is to enter within oneself, to get to know ourselves, our richness, misery, moral state. The first words Teresa entices us with in the interior castle are about our marvelous capacity, dignity, beauty, that we are a palace made entirely out of diamond or very clear crystal. We have the power to converse with none other than God. Prayer also reveals to us our moral state. Teresa tells us that through the practice of prayer, I knew the bad road I was following. Prayer is also a transforming encounter. Intimate, friendly sharing means the friendship grows stronger. This thesis is defended by our Holy Mother, Teresa, in all of her works. The Life defends the thesis that prayer is transforming. As proof, she points to her own life, the fruit of prayer. The Way of Perfection deals with the same thing. Prayer is the way of perfection. The Interior Castle presents prayer as a movement inward towards the center of our being, where God abides, and towards deepening our relationship with Him. The best prayer will always renew one's life. I would not wish for any other prayer except that which makes me increase in virtue. To discern if prayer is real, it is necessary to look at one's own life. In dealing with mystical prayer, it is the effects and deeds following afterwards that one discerns the true value of prayer. There is no better crucible for testing prayer. What each of you will understand, daughters, if you are advanced, will be that you are the most wretched of all, and not in having more delights and raptures in prayer or visions or favors of this kind that the Lord grants. Since it is a friendly encounter, prayer is open to grow and develop. It is a living reality, dynamic, ongoing. It is important to underline the dynamic nature of prayer so as to support a person's prayer positively in all stages of the process. Teresa has spoken graphically of the dynamism of prayer using comparisons, various ways of watering the garden of the soul. In her life, various levels of communication between God and the soul in the interior castle. Both comparisons illustrate a progression. In other words, God's activity increases while the passivity of the soul increases. She points out in her life that the work of the gardener or the soul is increasingly less, but the harvest is greater. God progressively gains control until He finally commands it. In the interior castle, Teresa speaks of prayer as an inward movement. God and the soul share intimately at ever more profound levels. This is the meaning of different mansions. Mystical prayer is the subject of Teresian teaching. She underlines that what is most important in this friendly encounter, but often overlooked, is God's part in this prayer. He is the principal agent. The soul is led to an attitude of passive activity, one of receptive listening. For Teresa, prayer is fundamentally a time of listening, a time of God's manifestation. She points out the attitude with which one must approach the rendezvous of prayer when she writes, "Draw near then to this good Master with strong determination to learn what He teaches you." God, Christ, teaches in prayer to anyone who wants to be taught by Him in prayer. When prayer is seen as an interpersonal encounter of mutual love, we have a radical solution to a problem which has always vexed the practice of prayer: distractions and aridity. Teresa tirelessly repeats that they are no bar to prayer, but do make it more difficult. She goes on to say that one can be with God with 1,000 disturbances from worldly cares and thoughts, as he doesn't pay any attention to bad thoughts. She continues saying that if they can't even get a good thought, they shouldn't kill themselves. And so it isn't good for us to be disturbed by our thoughts, nor should we be concerned. Amen. This is the end of part 3. Part 4 will be talking about Christ in Teresian prayer.